I also do stand-up comedy.
Well,
Nice.
So with the same interpreter that you're hearing right now, which is
Nice.
awesome.
awesome.
So you guys are pretty used to working with each other. Then yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Where do you perform stand-up?
Normally, like downtown Rochester. So one of them is Boulder Cafe, and they do stand up on Mondays. So my interpreter has a class on Mondays now, but now they do it Wednesdays as well. So we're thinking about getting that coordinated.
Nice, nice. And what got you into stand-up comedy?
Yeah. So I've always been told I'm funny. I have an interesting sense of humor, and my family is sick of me. But my friends find me weird. So that's why I do stand up. To show off my comedy
off.
skills and my weird jokes to all of the different people.
And how long have you been doing it for?
Ever since last summer. It was interesting because it can be hard to find an interpreter to voice for me for stand
Yeah,
up.
that's
So, and also I'm from Seattle. So that is way harder to find an interpreter.
Oh, right.
And also, if there is a club, community, a cub. Sorry, one moment. Interpreter error.
No worries.
Oh, club.
A comedy club willing to pay for an interpreter.
That's nice.
So I finally found an interpreter last summer who was willing to do it for free before I would continue. So clubs are required to pay for the interpreter
Right.
because of the ADA law. So,
Oh wow.
but they do ignore my emails.
Okay.
So that's why it's hard to find an interpreter, and I want to find someone that will be willing to do it for free. But here in Rochester, it's more accessible because there are more people who understand, deaf rights and all of that here.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting because, like, you have the Americans with Disabilities Act, and so I guess by that law the like hosting the hosting organization, the business is responsible for providing that, but sometimes it's easier for them to just sort of ignore it because they don't want to spend the money or this or that. So has that been like a big challenge for you?
Yeah, it definitely has. When I took my driving class, I delayed me 2 years because there was the driving school where my sister had gone. My sister is older than me, so she had gone previously. And then my mom wanted me to go to the same school because they had good reviews and everything. But then the organizer said that it was too much money to afford an interpreter. So I had to wait. And they made me lose money. It's a little bit like unclear on the details, but basically what happened was there's just like, so we had to sue, and finally they agreed to provide me an interpreter. So I took my first driving class at 17, which is unfortunate because it was delayed.
Wow.
So you had to sue to be able to get to that point. That's wow. They'd have to go through that. That's awful. Wow. Well, that's
Yeah. The owner said that in order for me to sit in the class, for the full class, they'd be just reading the book. So not anything I'm missing too much. So I don't know.
Wow.
Wow, though. Geez, well, I'm curious if we can go back to stand-up comedy
Yeah,
for
yeah,
just
yeah,
a second. Stand up is really intense. I know people say that's like really scary. I don't know. For myself, I'd have a hard time getting on stage and doing that.
Oh yeah.
And then you have an extra added layer of having an interpreter there too, which just kind of makes the whole thing probably more difficult to coordinate and make the timing of jokes work. Like, have you had a lot of luck like that? Like when you do this, do you go to open mics or do you actually schedule slots, or how does that work?
Yeah. So there are two challenges with having an interpreter. The first is my jokes might sound a little weird.
Right.
Like during my first stand-up, I talked about missile,
Cuban Missile Crisis.
Cuban Missile
Cuban
Crisis.
Missile Crisis. Good pickup.
Yeah, good. So how does that connect to
Sorry.
my?
We'll have to mute this.
That was my first stand-up. So I connected that to my first stand-up.
Got it.
The interpreters don't always know what I'm saying, as you can tell. It just happened. So when I have a script, that helps.
Interesting.
So you can give them the script so they at least know what to expect. That makes more sense. Yeah, that's
Yes, exactly. So that
that's
normally
tough,
does help. And then the second challenge, normally there's a delay. So it's called lag time with the
Right.
interpreters. And that's where they're catching up to the message. So it can be hard to navigate that because you have to be close to the message to be able to get the jokes to land.
Yeah.
So when I do stand up, I do like a walk-in slot where I write my name. So it's nothing fancy,
Yeah.
but it does the job.
yeah, of course.
And so when you're delivering jokes, I mean, like you said, of course, you have that lag time. So how is that? Like, does that sort of change your jokes? Do you take that into consideration when you're writing them? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's the challenge. When I make jokes with my family and friend, it's flowing nice. So when I write a script, that helps.
Mm-hmm.
I do have to imagine feeling myself there. It's not the same energy like when I'm just writing alone. So
Right.
it also does change my jokes because
Can't imagine.
when I do have an interpreter, I have to learn to work with the interpreter
Yeah.
and trust them.
Yeah, of course.
That way they're able to deliver my jokes on time. And that takes a lot of trust.
Yeah. And I also imagine like when you're delivering a punchline, usually you get that reaction immediately from the audience, like that they like it, and so you can sort of use that to kind of maybe like change the way you do the next one. So having that delay, like you might not know if a joke landed until 5 seconds later, right? So like that's also got to be tough in terms of like just knowing how you're doing, right?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the challenges. When it comes to stand-up, I have to really pay attention to the audience. I don't pay attention to the audience. I try to focus on the interpreter. So when I'm watching like the video, that is when I'm able to see what worked and what didn't work.
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting.
So it's a pretty interesting experience in person, and then I also would film and like watch a video later to see.
Mm. And I was watching one of your stand-up videos, and I noticed that you actually, did you have 2 interpreters for that?
Yes. That was my first time in Rochester, so I did have I did it one time in Seattle too, but the first time in Rochester I did. The second time in Rochester was a challenge That I thought that the time was 5 minutes, but it was actually shorter. It was 4 minutes. So we had to change our script last minute, and like it was pretty stressful.
That sounds
Yeah.
really stressful. Oh, wow, though.
Yeah. That's like I was rushing kind of through the script to make sure everything was good. So even if we changed just one thing, it could kind of mess up the flow of everything.
Right.
Oh, wow.
But for that, did I see it correctly? Did you have two people interpreting, or was it just one?
I did have two interpreters, but then the last time I only had one interpreter. And it was more smooth because that interpreter had a little bit more experience.
Okay. So when you
And more trust. I trust
Yeah,
them more.
and when you have two, like what are each of their roles? Like, do they both do the same thing, or?
Yeah, so my first time in Seattle, I was last in the list. So I did have two interpreters going back and forth. They would be interpreting what the performers before me were saying. But in Rochester, it needs more support, I would say. For the first time that I did in Rochester, my interpreter had done it only that one time. So that was another challenge. So it really does depend on the situation you're in, and the interpreters you're working with.
How
Got
many
it.
people were in the audience in either of those times, if you had to guess? I'm just curious.
I would say about maybe 30 to 40
That's
people
a
in
pretty good amount.
Rochester.
Yeah, that's...
And then in Seattle, it was a little bit bigger. And it was more formal in Seattle.
That's
Gotcha.
intense, though. Yeah, wow.
Did they like it?
Yeah, we'll see about it. I don't know. The best part is when people don't laugh at jokes, you know what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And that helps you to be more funny next time.
Absolutely.
So I enjoy the challenge.